The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with the nervous energy of 12 different species, each representative shifting in their specialized seating arrangements. The crystalline Zephyrians chimed softly as their bodies vibrated with anxiety, while the gas-formed nebulans swirled faster than usual in their containment suits. At the center of the massive chamber, Ambassador Kretak of the Dominion Fleet stood rigid, his forearms trembling slightly as he faced the semicircle of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. "Repeat that statement." "Ambassador," commanded High Counselor Vexandra, her insectoid mandibles clicking with barely contained shock. The ancient being had presided over the council for 3 centuries, and never once had she heard such an absurd claim. Kretak's throat sacs inflated and deflated rapidly, a clear sign of distress among his species. "Honorable counselors, I must report that our 3rd invasion fleet has suffered complete annihilation at the hands of the inhabitants of the 3rd planet in the Sol system." A wave of confused murmurs rippled through the chamber. Counselor Thorne, representing the mighty Ursine Collective, leaned forward in his massive chair. "Ambassador, are you suggesting that a pre-warp civilization destroyed an entire Dominion fleet? Perhaps you meant to say they put up unexpected resistance before being conquered." "No, Honored Thorne." Kretak's voice cracked like breaking ice. "I mean complete destruction. 200 ships. 50,000 of our finest warriors, gone, not a single vessel returned to report." The silence that followed was so profound that the chamber's atmospheric processors seemed to echo like thunder. High Counselor Vexandra's compound eyes focused and refocused, a sign that she was accessing her deepest memory banks to ensure she had heard correctly. "Ambassador," she began slowly, "you are referring to the species that still uses chemical propulsion for space travel? The ones who have not yet achieved faster-than-light communication? The planet where the dominant species fights wars using projectile weapons and explosive devices?" Kretak nodded miserably. "The very same, High Counselor. We designated them as Classification 7, primitive, fragmented, technologically inferior. Our battle computers calculated a 99.97% probability of successful conquest within 72 standard hours." Counselor Ilthes, a graceful being whose entire body seemed to be made of flowing silver, spoke with a voice like wind chimes. "Perhaps there was some kind of natural disaster? A solar flare or an asteroid collision that coincidentally occurred during your approach?" "We considered that possibility," Kretak replied, his secondary arms ringing together. "But our long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures consistent with weapons fire. Not natural phenomena. Deliberate, coordinated attacks that seemed to anticipate our every tactical move." The revelation sent shock waves through the assembled representatives. The blue-skinned Aquarians began rapid-fire chittering in their musical language, while the rock-like terraformers' glowing veins pulsed with agitation. Even the normally stoic Voidwalkers, beings of pure energy housed in mechanical shells, flickered with what could only be described as disbelief. High Counselor Vexandra activated her personal communicator, and within moments, holographic displays materialized throughout the chamber showing detailed files on Earth and its inhabitants. The data was sobering. Humans had barely mastered nuclear technology. Their fastest spacecraft would take millennia to reach the nearest star, and their planetary civilization was fragmented into competing nation-states that regularly engaged in violent conflicts. "Show us the tactical recordings," commanded Counselor Thorne. Kretak's mandibles clicked nervously. That's part of the problem, Honored Counselor. There are no recordings. Every ship's data core was completely destroyed. But we do have the automated distress beacon from the flagship before it went dark." A 3-dimensional image appeared in the center of the chamber, showing the bridge of a massive Dominion warship. The recording was brief and chaotic. Warning lights flashed red as the ship shook violently. In the background, voices could be heard shouting in the Dominion's guttural language. The ship's captain appeared in frame, his face a mask of terror and confusion. "Emergency transmission to High Command. We are under attack by unknown vessels using impossible technology." They appear from nowhere, strike with precision we've never encountered, then vanish before we can respond. How do they know our weaknesses? How do they— The transmission cut to static. The chamber fell silent once more. Finally, Counselor Quintal of the Ethereal Collective spoke, his translucent form shimmering with concern. Ambassador, are you absolutely certain these attacks came from the planet's native inhabitants? Could there have been intervention from another galactic power? Perhaps a species we haven't encountered? We've considered every possibility, Kretak responded. But our intelligence networks show no sign of unknown civilizations in that sector. The nearest spacefaring species are the Centauri traders, and they've been accounted for. Besides, the energy signatures were unlike anything in our databases. Whatever destroyed our fleet used technology that operates on principles we don't understand. High Counselor Vexandra's ancient mind raced through the implications. If a primitive world had somehow developed weapons capable of destroying a Dominion fleet, it would shatter everything they thought they knew about technological development. The careful hierarchy of the galaxy, built on billions of years of predictable advancement, would be thrown into chaos. How long ago did this occur? She asked. 47 standard days, Kretak replied. We've been monitoring the system since then, but there's been no follow-up activity from the planet. No attempt at communication, no expansion of their defensive perimeter. It's as if they simply went back to their normal activities. The implications hung heavy in the air. A species capable of annihilating a major military force, yet showing no interest in exploiting their victory or expanding beyond their world, defied every model of civilizational behavior the Council had ever studied. The emergency session continued for hours as the Council struggled to process the impossible information. Ambassador Kretak had been dismissed to allow for private deliberation, leaving the 12 most powerful beings in the galaxy to confront a reality that challenged everything they believed about the universe. Counselor Thorne paced within his designated area, his massive bulk creating tremors in the chamber floor. Perhaps the Dominion fleet encountered some kind of automated defense system left behind by an extinct civilization? Ancient Guardian satellites or dormant weapons platforms? High Counselor Vexandra consulted her data streams. Our archaeological surveys of that system showed no evidence of prior technological civilizations. The planet's sentient species evolved naturally and has developed independently for their entire existence. Then we're dealing with a completely unknown factor, admitted Counselor Ilthes, her silver form shifting with anxiety. A species that has somehow developed technology capable of defeating our most advanced military forces, yet shows none of the traditional markers of such capability. The ethereal Counselor Quintal flickered with agitation. What troubles me most is the tactical sophistication described in the final transmissions. The humans supposedly appeared from nowhere, struck with precision, then vanished. That suggests not just advanced weaponry, but strategic thinking that rivals our greatest military minds. It gets worse, announced Counselor Zarbeth, the representative of the Hive Consciousness. Her collective mind had been processing battle scenarios since the revelation began. I've run statistical analyses on every possible explanation. The probability of a classification 7 species developing such capabilities independently approaches 0. There are only 2 logical conclusions. The chamber waited in tense silence. Either our classification system is fundamentally flawed, she continued, or these humans are not what they appear to be. High Counselor Vexandra felt a chill run through her exoskeleton. In 3 centuries of leadership, she had never encountered a scenario that threatened the Council's basic understanding of reality. Elaborate on both possibilities. If our classification system is wrong, Zarbeth explained, then we've misunderstood the nature of technological advancement itself. Perhaps there are paths to sophisticated technology that don't follow the standard progression we've observed in thousands of civilizations. This would mean any primitive world could potentially pose a threat. The implications sent waves of alarm through the chamber. The galaxy contained millions of planets with developing civilizations, all assumed to be harmless until they achieved certain technological benchmarks. The second possibility, Zarbeth continued, is that the inhabitants of this world are not the primitive beings they appear to be. They could be refugees from an advanced civilization, colonists who deliberately chose to live simply, or perhaps they're conducting some kind of elaborate deception. Counselor Vexnatter activated her communication array and connected to the vast Council intelligence network. Within moments, she was reviewing every piece of data ever collected about the Sol system and its third planet. The information was extensive but seemingly straightforward: a young species that had emerged from natural evolution, developed agriculture, formed primitive societies, and gradually advanced to their current technological level. Their radio transmissions had been monitored for decades, revealing a complex but clearly developing civilization. According to our records, she announced, human civilization shows every sign of natural development. We have thousands of years of archaeological and biological evidence supporting their indigenous status. There's no indication of outside influence or hidden technology. Then how do we explain what happened to the Dominion fleet? Demanded Counselor Thorne. Before anyone could respond, an urgent alert tone echoed through the chamber. The Council's military advisor, General Kextos, materialized via holographic projection. The scarred veteran's expression was grim. Honored counselors, I apologize for the interruption, but we have a developing situation. 3 more fleets have gone missing in the past week. The revelation hit the chamber like a physical blow. High Counselor Vexandra felt her ancient hearts skip several beats. Which civilizations? The Centauri Expeditionary Force, a hegemony scouting group, and most concerning of all, a science vessel from the Ethereal Collective. General Kextos paused. All were investigating the Sol system. Counselor Quintal-S' translucent form suddenly blazed with energy. You sent ships to investigate without Council authorization? Not officially, the General admitted. But news of the Dominion's losses has spread through unofficial channels. Several military commands independently decided to gather intelligence. None of them returned? The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien languages as representatives demanded explanations, accused each other of reckless actions, and struggled to comprehend the expanding scope of the crisis. High Counselor Vexandra activated the chamber's harmony protocols, generating a calming frequency that gradually restored order. General, she said once quiet returned, what have your analysts concluded from these additional losses? The pattern is consistent, he replied. Ships approach the system, maintain normal communications until they enter the outer planetary boundary, then simply vanish. No distress calls, no weapon signatures detected by distant observers, no debris fields. It's as if they never existed. Counselor Ilthes flowed closer to the projection. Could we be dealing with some kind of spatial anomaly? A natural phenomenon that destroys ships? Negative. We've monitored civilian traffic in nearby systems. Merchant vessels and independent travelers pass through the region without incident. Whatever is happening specifically targets military vessels approaching Earth. The implications were staggering. Somehow, the inhabitants of Earth were not only capable of destroying any ship that approached their world, but they were able to distinguish between military and civilian vessels from vast distances. This suggested a level of surveillance and discrimination that exceeded the capabilities of most Council member species. How many ships have we lost in total? Asked Counselor Zarbeth. General Kextos consulted his data streams. Including today's reports, 17 vessels from 4 different civilizations, over 100,000 personnel. The number hung in the air like a curse. In the entire history of the Galactic Council, no single world had ever posed such a threat to multiple spacefaring civilizations. Wars between major powers had resulted in fewer casualties than this unknown species had inflicted simply by defending their home system. The Council's emergency protocols had been activated, and for the first time in galactic history, all military operations were suspended while they grappled with the Earth crisis. High Counselor Vexandra had convened a special research committee, pulling the greatest minds from every member civilization to study the available data. Dr. Sylvana, the Council's leading xenopsychologist, materialized in the chamber via quantum projection from her research station. The ethereal being's form flickered with barely contained excitement as she prepared to present her findings. "Honored counselors," she began, "I've completed my analysis of human behavioral patterns based on intercepted transmissions and cultural observations. What I've discovered may explain the tactical sophistication that destroyed our fleets." The chamber fell silent as every representative focused their attention on the projection. "Humans are warriors, but not in any way we've previously encountered. Most species develop warfare as a survival necessity and gradually evolve beyond it as they achieve technological advancement. Humans appear to have weaponized the very concept of conflict itself." Dr. Silvana activated a holographic display showing various human activities. "Observe their recreational pursuits, competitive games that simulate warfare, entertainment media focused on conflict scenarios, and physical competitions that mirror combat situations. They've turned strategic thinking into a form of art." Counselor Thorne leaned forward, his massive frame creaking. "Many species enjoy competitive activities. How does this explain their apparent military superiority?" "The scale and sophistication are unprecedented," Dr. Silvana replied. "Humans don't just compete against each other. They compete against abstract concepts. They create games with no solution, puzzles with increasing complexity, and scenarios where victory requires not just defeating opponents but predicting their psychological responses several moves in advance." The display shifted to show mathematical models and strategy simulations. "Consider their approach to what they call chess," she continued. "A game that requires players to think multiple moves ahead while simultaneously predicting their opponent's plans and contingencies. They've developed computer programs to play this game that can defeat any human player, then created new variants specifically to challenge those same computers." High Counselor Vexandra felt a growing sense of unease. "You're suggesting they've evolved strategic thinking as a primary cognitive function?" "More than that. They've created an entire civilization based on competitive advancement. Their economic systems, their scientific development, their social structures, everything operates on principles of strategic competition. They don't just solve problems. They solve problems while actively working against other humans trying to solve the same problems." Counselor Ilthus S. Silverform rippled with confusion. "That seems incredibly inefficient. Why would they deliberately create obstacles to their own progress?" Dr. Silvana S. projection brightened. "Because the obstacles make them stronger. They've discovered that artificial adversity produces better solutions than cooperation alone. Their greatest technological advances came during periods of intense conflict, not peaceful development." The revelation sent shock waves through the chamber. The Galactic Standard for Civilization Development emphasized cooperation, resource sharing, and collective advancement. The idea that conflict could be a primary driver of progress challenged fundamental assumptions about intelligence itself. "Furthermore," Dr. Silvana continued, "they've developed what they call war games, elaborate simulations, where they practice fighting opponents who don't exist, using weapons they hope never to build in scenarios they pray never happen. They train for conflicts they don't want, against enemies they've never met." General Kexto's S hologram flickered back online. "Doctor, are you suggesting they somehow anticipated our arrival?" "Not our specific arrival, but they've prepared for the possibility of external threats for generations. They call it national defense on a planetary scale. They've developed contingency plans for scenarios including invasion by beings they've never encountered, using technologies they don't understand." The chamber erupted in confused chatter as representatives struggled to process this information. The idea that a pre-warp civilization would prepare for interstellar warfare seemed absurd. Yet the evidence was undeniable. Counselor Quinal S. ethereal form pulsed with interest. How could they develop effective defenses against unknown opponents? "By making their defenses adaptive rather than specific," Dr. Silvana explained. "Instead of preparing for particular threats, They've created systems designed to identify and counter unfamiliar attack patterns. They've spent centuries fighting each other using every conceivable strategy, then developing countermeasures for those strategies, then developing countermeasures for the countermeasures. High Counselor Vexandra accessed her deepest memory banks, searching for any precedent in galactic history. She found none. Every known civilization had followed predictable development patterns: survive, cooperate, expand, explore. The humans seemed to have developed along an entirely different evolutionary pathway. "Doctor," she said carefully, "what do your projections suggest about their current military capabilities?" The holographic display shifted to show probability matrices and tactical assessments. "Based on their demonstrated ability to destroy our most advanced fleets, I estimate they possess defensive capabilities equivalent to a Class II civilization, despite showing Class 7 technology in all other areas." The numbers were staggering. Class II civilizations were spacefaring empires with multiple star systems under their control. The gap between Class 7 and Class 2 was normally measured in millennia of development. "How is such advancement possible?" demanded Counselor Zarbath. "I believe they've achieved a form of technological compression," Dr. Sylvana replied. "By focusing all their innovative energy on solving strategic problems, they've developed solutions that appear primitive but function at levels we consider advanced. It's as if they've discovered how to build starfighters using stone tools." Counselor Thorne growled deep in his throat. "Are you saying they're more dangerous than they appear?" "I'm saying they're dangerous in ways we've never encountered. Traditional military doctrine assumes opponents will behave according to logical parameters of resource conservation and strategic efficiency. Humans appear to operate under different parameters entirely." The projection shifted to show human historical records, massive industrial efforts devoted to warfare, scientific advances driven by military necessity, and social structures organized around the concept of national defense. "They've turned their entire species into a strategic weapon," Dr. Sylvana concluded. "Every human is a potential soldier, every human settlement is a potential fortress, and every human innovation is a potential military application. They don't have an army, they are an army." The silence that followed was broken only by the atmospheric processors cycling air through the chamber. For the first time in Council history, the galaxy's greatest minds faced a threat they couldn't categorize, predict, or understand. The Council had been in continuous session for 6 standard days, and the strain was beginning to show. Representatives who normally maintained perfect composure were exhibiting signs of stress-induced behaviors. Even High Counselor Vexandra, as ancient, calm, had developed visible cracks as more reports arrived from the Sol System. Commander Zultar of the Council Intelligence Division entered the chamber with an expression that somehow managed to combine terror and fascination. His species, the Observants, were renowned for their analytical capabilities and emotional stability. Seeing him visibly shaken sent waves of anxiety through the assembled representatives. "Honored counselors," he began, his voice carrying an unusual tremor, "we have successfully established long-range surveillance of the Sol System. What we've observed defies every military principle we understand." The chamber's central display activated, showing detailed scans of Earth's orbital space. To most observers, it appeared completely normal, a blue-green world rotating peacefully around its star, with a few primitive satellites and space stations visible in the immediate vicinity. "At first glance," Commander Zultar continued, "the planet appears defenseless. We can detect their communication networks, their simple spacecraft, and their basic orbital infrastructure. According to every scanning protocol we possess, this world should be incapable of resisting a determined attack by any spacefaring civilization." Counselor Ilthes flowed closer to the display. "But our ships continued to disappear when they approached the system." "Precisely. And now we know why." The commander activated enhanced scanning modes, and the display transformed. Suddenly, space around Earth revealed a complex network of objects that hadn't been visible moments before. "They're using stealth technology that operates on principles we've never encountered. These objects don't mask their presence, they make themselves appear to be something else entirely. The revealed objects were numerous and varied in size. Some appeared to be disguised as asteroids, others as space debris or natural phenomena. But the most disturbing revelation was their distribution. They formed a defensive sphere extending far beyond what any civilization should be able to monitor or control. "How far does their defensive perimeter extend?" asked High Counselor Vexandra. "Approximately 12 light hours from their homeworld." "That's further than some species can effectively communicate across their own star systems." The number sent shock waves through the chamber. A defensive perimeter of that size required technological sophistication beyond most Council member civilizations. Yet Earth's inhabitants appeared to be using chemical rockets and radio communications. Counselor Thorne stood with a ground-shaking thud. "Commander, are you telling us that a pre-warp species has somehow established a defensive network larger than most interstellar empires?" "Not only established it, but made it completely invisible to our best scanning technology until we specifically knew to look for it. Furthermore, these installations appear to be automated and capable of making independent tactical decisions." Dr. Sylvana's projection flickered back online. "Commander, this supports my earlier analysis. The humans have created a defensive system that doesn't rely on their visible technology. They've found ways to achieve advanced results using methods that appear primitive to our scanners." "There's more," Commander Zultar continued grimly. "We attempted to trace the energy signatures of their defensive installations. The power requirements for maintaining such an extensive network should be enormous. Easily detectable by our sensors." He paused, and the display shifted to show energy distribution patterns around Earth. "We found no unusual energy signatures. According to our instruments, these installations are operating without any detectable power source." The impossibility of the statement hung in the air like a physical presence. Technology required energy, and energy could always be detected. The laws of thermodynamics were universal constants, as fundamental as gravity or electromagnetic force. Counselor Quintel's ethereal form blazed with confusion. "Are you suggesting they violated the basic principles of physics?" "I'm suggesting they've discovered applications of physics that we haven't," the commander replied. "Our scientists are reviewing the data, but initial analysis indicates they may be using quantum effects we considered purely theoretical." High Counselor Vexandra felt her worldview continuing to crumble. In her 3 centuries of experience, she had never encountered a situation where the Council's accumulated knowledge proved so inadequate. "Commander, what is your assessment of their current threat level?" The display shifted to show tactical projections and threat analyses. The results were sobering. "Based on demonstrated capabilities, I classify Earth as a Class 1 military threat with potential for Class 0 designation." The chamber fell silent. Class 1 threats were galactic superpowers capable of challenging the Council itself. Class 0 was theoretical a civilization so advanced that it could threaten the existence of all other spacefaring species. "Furthermore," the commander continued, "they've shown no interest in expanding beyond their home system. This suggests either incredible restraint or confidence that they can defend their territory against any possible threat." Counselor Zarbeth's collective mind processed the implications at superhuman speed. "Commander, you're describing a species that has achieved near-perfect defense without visible technology, extended their influence across impossible distances, and done so while maintaining the appearance of primitive development. This level of deception would require ... She trailed off as the full implications became clear. "It would require planning that extends across multiple generations," Dr. Sylvana finished. "They would have had to begin preparing for interstellar contact before they had any reason to believe such contact was possible." The revelation struck the chamber like a physical blow. The humans hadn't simply developed effective defenses. They had somehow anticipated the need for such defenses and prepared accordingly. This suggested either incredible foresight or knowledge of galactic civilization that predated their supposed first contact. "Commander, Zoltar activated additional displays showing historical data analysis. Our intelligence division has been reviewing archive transmissions from Earth spanning the past several centuries. We've identified a pattern of fictional narratives describing contact with alien civilizations, almost all of which assume such contact would be hostile. They've been planning for invasion since before they knew we existed, High Counselor Vexandra said quietly. It appears so. Their entertainment media, their scientific speculation, their military planning, everything has been building toward the assumption that contact with alien species would require defensive preparation. Counselor Thorne's massive form trembled with something that might have been respect or fear. They prepared for a war they hoped would never happen, against enemies they believed might not exist, using weapons they couldn't afford to test. And they won, added Counselor Ilthes. The simple statement carried the weight of galactic history. 17 ships from 4 different civilizations had approached Earth with hostile intent. None had returned. The humans had achieved perfect victory without revealing their true capabilities, without expanding beyond their territory, and without any indication they even considered the conflict significant enough to acknowledge. The Council's most senior military strategists had joined the emergency session, bringing with them tactical analyses that painted an increasingly disturbing picture. Fleet Admiral Kexenal, a veteran of countless campaigns across the galaxy, stood before the assembled representatives with the bearing of someone delivering a death sentence. "Honored counselors," she began, her voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. "I have completed comprehensive wargame scenarios using all available data about human defensive capabilities. The results are unprecedented." High Counselor Vexandra steeled herself for another impossible revelation. "Present your findings, Admiral." The chamber's tactical displays activated, showing complex three-dimensional battle simulations. Ships moved in elegant formations, weapons fired in calculated patterns, and defensive positions shifted according to strategic doctrine that had been perfected over millions of years of galactic warfare. Using conventional assault strategies, we projected a 0.0001% probability of successfully penetrating Earth's defensive perimeter with any significant force, the Admiral announced. Even deploying the entire combined fleet of the Council, we estimate 97% casualties before reaching the planet's surface. The numbers were staggering. The Council's combined military force represented the accumulated might of thousands of worlds, millions of ships, and technological advancement spanning eons. The idea that a single planet could resist such force was beyond comprehension. Counselor Thorne's massive fists clenched unconsciously. "Admiral, surely those projections assume we're using outdated tactical approaches. Have you considered new strategies specifically designed to counter their defensive advantages?" "I've considered every possible approach, Counselor. The fundamental problem isn't tactical, it's conceptual. Our entire military doctrine is based on assumptions that apparently don't apply to human defense systems." Fleet Admiral Kexenal activated detailed breakdowns of the simulation results. Traditional warfare relies on predictable force calculations, firepower versus defensive strength, numbers versus positioning, technology versus training. The humans appear to have developed a defensive philosophy that makes these calculations meaningless. Dr. Sylvana S. projection flickered with interest. "Explain how their approach differs from standard defensive doctrine." "Standard doctrine creates strong points that must be overcome through superior force or tactical maneuvering. The humans seem to have created what I can only describe as adaptive nullification. Their defenses don't resist attack so much as make attack irrelevant." The display showed simulation after simulation of fleet movements approaching Earth, each ending in the same result: complete disappearance of attacking forces with no visible defensive response. They've somehow achieved a state where the act of aggressive approach triggers defensive responses that we cannot detect, predict, or counter. It's as if they've weaponized the concept of hostile intent itself. Commander Zultar S. intelligence reports had revealed additional disturbing patterns. Admiral, we've also discovered that their defensive responses scale with the size of approaching threats. Small scientific expeditions simply vanish. Large military fleets are destroyed with increasingly sophisticated methods. You're saying they adjust their response based on threat assessment? Asked Counselor Quintal. More than that. They appear to be learning from each encounter, developing new countermeasures for tactical approaches they haven't seen before. Each engagement makes their defenses stronger and more adaptive. Fleet Admiral Kexenal nodded grimly. This creates an impossible strategic situation. We cannot probe their defenses without strengthening them, cannot develop countermeasures without revealing our capabilities, and cannot retreat without acknowledging defeat to a supposedly primitive species. High Counselor Vexandra felt the weight of galactic history pressing down on her ancient shoulders. In 3 centuries of leadership, she had never faced a problem without solution, a challenge without strategy, a threat without response. The humans had presented her with all 3 simultaneously. "Admiral," she said carefully, "what would be required to guarantee successful invasion of Earth?" The tactical expert consulted her deepest analysis protocols before responding. "Based on demonstrated adaptive capabilities and defensive coverage, I estimate we would need to deploy technological capabilities equivalent to stellar engineering. Essentially, we would need to be capable of moving stars or destroying entire solar systems." The silence that followed was profound. Stellar engineering was the domain of theoretical civilizations so advanced they were considered mythical? The Council's most powerful member species were barely capable of planetary modification. Furthermore, the Admiral continued, such an approach would guarantee the complete destruction of Earth itself, making invasion pointless. We would be committing galactic-scale genocide to conquer a lifeless rock. Counselor Ilthes flowed closer to the central display. "Are you suggesting that Earth is unconquerable?" "I'm suggesting that Earth has achieved perfect defense through imperfect means. They've created a strategic situation where the only way to defeat them is to destroy what you're trying to conquer." Dr. Sylvana S. analysis had revealed the psychological dimensions of the human defensive strategy. "Counselors, I believe the humans have achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They've made themselves simultaneously vulnerable and invulnerable." "Elaborate," commanded High Counselor Vexandra. "Individually, humans are fragile beings with short lifespans and limited physical capabilities. Their planet can be destroyed by conventional weapons. Their technology can be disrupted by standard military doctrine, and their society shows all the weaknesses typical of developing civilizations." The display shifted to show detailed biological and social analyses. "But collectively, they've created a defensive system that transcends their individual limitations. They've achieved species-level strategic thinking that operates independently of any single human's knowledge or capability." Commander Zulultar added his intelligence perspective. "Our analysis suggests that most humans are unaware of their planet's true defensive capabilities. They continue to behave as if they're isolated and vulnerable, while their collective unconscious has created protection systems beyond their conscious understanding." The implications were staggering. The humans had somehow developed defenses they didn't even know they possessed, achieved security through methods they couldn't explain, and created military advantages while maintaining the psychology of a threatened species. Fleet Admiral Kexenal delivered her final assessment. "Honorable Counselors, it is my professional opinion that humanity represents a form of defensive evolution we've never encountered. They've become a species weapon that activates only when threatened, remains dormant during peaceful contact, and grows stronger through conflict." High Counselor Vexandra realized that the galaxy faced a fundamental choice. They could continue attempting to understand and potentially conquer Earth, risking the loss of more ships and personnel while strengthening human defenses. Or they could accept that some species had evolved beyond the reach of conventional galactic civilization. "Admiral," she asked quietly, "what do you recommend?" The veteran military leader's response carried the weight of absolute conviction. I recommend we leave them alone and hope they choose to leave us alone in return. 6 months had passed since the Council's emergency session, and the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new reality. The Sol system had been officially designated as a protected zone, with strict protocols prohibiting any military vessel from approaching within 50 light hours of Earth. Trade routes had been adjusted, territorial boundaries redrawn, and an entire section of galactic space effectively ceded to a single planet whose inhabitants remained blissfully unaware of their new status. High Counselor Vexandra stood alone in her private chambers, reviewing the final reports that would reshape galactic policy for generations to come. The accumulated data painted a picture so extraordinary that she sometimes wondered if the entire crisis had been an elaborate simulation designed to test her sanity. The humans continued their normal activities with no indication they knew they had fought and won the largest defensive campaign in galactic history. Their radio transmissions carried no mention of alien contact. Their orbital installations showed no signs of enhanced military activity, and their space exploration programs proceeded at the same leisurely pace they had maintained for decades. A soft chime announced an incoming priority communication. Ambassador Kretak appeared via holographic projection, his forearms moving in gestures of profound respect mixed with nervous energy. High Counselor, he began, I bring news from the Dominion High Command. Our deep analysis teams have completed their study of the Sol system situation. Vexandra gestured for him to continue, though she suspected she knew what he would report. Our scientists believe the humans have achieved what they term unconscious collective defense. Their entire species operates as a single defensive organism while remaining individually unaware of this capability. The ambassador activated data displays showing the results of months of careful observation. We've documented instances where human scientific research, completely unrelated to military applications, somehow produces technologies that enhance their defensive capabilities. Their entertainment industry creates scenarios that train their population for strategic thinking. Even their economic systems seem designed to support rapid mobilization of resources for unknown purposes. It was confirmation of what Dr. Silvana had theorized months earlier. Humanity had evolved into something entirely new. A species-level intelligence that operated below the threshold of individual consciousness. Furthermore, Kretak continued, we've discovered that their defensive responses are triggered not by hostile action but by hostile intent. Our ships weren't destroyed by weapons, they were eliminated by reality itself rejecting their presence. Vexandra felt a chill run through her ancient form. Ambassador, are you suggesting the humans have learned to weaponize the universe itself? Not weaponize, harmonize. They've achieved perfect synchronization with natural forces in their local space. Approaching Earth with aggressive intentions creates a fundamental dissonance that the universe resolves by removing the source of dissonance. The implications were beyond anything the Council had previously encountered. If humans could somehow influence natural laws through collective unconscious will, they represented not just a military threat, but a challenge to the basic principles governing reality. What does the Dominion High Command recommend? Vexandra asked. Complete non-interference, with a suggestion that we encourage other species to develop similar defensive capabilities through natural evolution rather than technological advancement. The admission represented a fundamental shift in galactic thinking. For the first time in recorded history, a major civilization was recommending that technology be abandoned in favor of evolutionary development. Another communication chime announced the arrival of Dr. Silvana S. Final analysis. The xenopsychologist's projection materialized with data that would become the foundation for new theories about consciousness and civilization. High Counselor, Dr. Silvana began, I've completed my comprehensive study of human collective behavior. What I've discovered suggests that we may have fundamentally misunderstood the nature of intelligent life. The display showed complex models of human social interaction, technological development, and cultural evolution. Humans appear to have developed along a completely different evolutionary pathway than any known species. Instead of advancing through individual intelligence enhancement, they've achieved collective consciousness while maintaining individual identity. Vexandra leaned forward with interest. How does this differ from hive minds like the Borg Collective? Hive minds sacrifice individual consciousness for collective capability. Humans have somehow achieved collective capability while enhancing individual consciousness. Each human becomes more capable through connection to their species, rather than less. The data showed how human creativity, problem-solving abilities, and strategic thinking all improved when humans worked together, yet without any loss of personal autonomy or individual identity. This creates a form of intelligence that scales exponentially, with population size while maintaining the flexibility and adaptability of individual consciousness. They've essentially become a single vast mind composed of billions of unique perspectives. Dr. Silvana activated additional displays showing projections of human development over the coming centuries. If current trends continue, humanity will achieve capabilities that we would classify as divine. Not through technology or genetic enhancement, but through the natural evolution of consciousness itself. The final piece of the puzzle came from Commander Zultar's Intelligence Division. His report contained the most disturbing revelation of all. Counselors, we have discovered that the humans are aware of our existence and have been for some time. Their defensive systems weren't triggered by our arrival, they were waiting for us. The projection showed intercepted communications from deep within human military and scientific establishments. References to first contact protocols, alien threat assessments, and interstellar defense strategies appeared in classified documents dating back decades. They knew we were coming and prepared accordingly. But rather than developing visible defenses that would alarm us, they created systems that would only activate if we proved hostile. Vexandra realized the full scope of human strategic thinking. They had prepared for alien contact while hoping it would be peaceful, developed defenses while working to avoid conflict, and achieved perfect security while maintaining the appearance of vulnerability. Commander, are you saying they could have contacted us peacefully at any time? Yes, High Counselor. They chose not to because they were waiting to see what kind of species we were? Our attack fleets served as a test of our intentions. The revelation completed the picture. Humanity hadn't been defending against unknown threats. They had been evaluating the galactic community's worthiness for contact. 17 ships from 4 civilizations had approached Earth with hostile intent, and 17 times humanity had demonstrated they were capable of perfect defense without visible aggression. What happens now? Vexandra asked. Commander Zultar's final slide showed current human space activities. Despite their demonstrated capability for devastating defense, they continued their peaceful exploration programs, their scientific research, and their cultural development. They're waiting, High Counselor. Waiting for us to prove we've learned better. High Counselor Vexandra understood. Humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had become the adults in a universe full of children playing with weapons. They possessed the power to reshape reality but chose restraint. They could dominate the galaxy but preferred solitude. They had won the greatest defensive victory in known history and treated it as a minor inconvenience. The galaxy would have to grow up before humanity would consider it ready for true contact. And perhaps Vexandra realized that was exactly what the universe needed. She authorized the final council directive. Sol system would remain protected space indefinitely. All research into human defensive capabilities would cease, and galactic civilization would work toward proving itself worthy of species that had evolved beyond the need for conquest, somewhere on a small blue world. Humanity continued their quiet preparation for a future they hoped would be better than their past, never knowing they had already saved a galaxy from its own worst impulses.